10 regrets I carry as a parent and what I do differently now. Asterisk. They don't tell you about the quiet moments that hit the hardest. Not the chaos, not the first day of school, not the sleepless nights, but the stillness. The kind that comes years later when the house is too quiet and you find yourself standing in the hallway outside a room that used to be filled with laughter, or tantrums, or both. I didn't plan to carry regrets. Like most parents, I thought love would be enough to get it all right. I thought showing up, working hard, and keeping the lights on meant I was doing a good job. I told myself, they'll understand one day. But now that one day has come, I realize I didn't understand enough back then. I missed things, important things. And even though I did the best I could with what I knew, it doesn't stop the ache. Some of these regrets crept in slowly. Others hit me like a wave. A photo, a forgotten toy, a message left unread for too long. And it's not just about what I did. Sometimes it's what I didn't do. The hugs I held back because I was frustrated. The words I should have said but didn't. The chances I had to be their safe place. And instead, I was just busy, distracted, caught up in being the kind of parent the world applauds, while quietly missing the kind of parent they truly needed. This isn't about guilt. I've lived with enough of that. It's about truth. The kind that humbles you. The kind you only get after the storm has passed and you have time to sit with what remains. Maybe you're in that storm now. Maybe you're just getting started. Or maybe, like me, you've got some gray in your hair and memories that feel both warm and heavy. Either way, I want to share these 10 regrets, not because I enjoy reliving them, but because someone out there might still have time. Time to choose differently, to listen more, shout less, to love without conditions, to be present before it becomes a luxury you no longer have. I carry these regrets the way some people carry photographs, not out of shame, but to remember what matters most. I can't go back and rewrite my story. But maybe, just maybe, I can help someone else write theirs a little softer, a little wiser, and with a little more heart. It's strange how, when you're in the thick of it, it feels like it will never end. The diapers, the messes, the mommy, look at this, every 5 seconds. I used to glance at the clock, waiting for bedtime like it was a finish line. Counting down the hours, the minutes, until I could have a little silence, a little peace. And now, I'd give anything to hear those tiny feet thudding across the floor one more time. To have a chubby little hand tug on my sleeve. To be interrupted again and again because they wanted to show me the world the way only a child can. Back then, everything felt urgent. There were always errands to run, dishes to wash, emails to answer, floors to mop. I told myself it was necessary, that a clean house and a full schedule meant I was a responsible parent. But in doing that, I rushed past the moments that actually mattered, the ones they remember, the ones I miss. I remember one evening, I came home late from work. My son was sitting on the floor, waiting up with a picture book in his lap. He didn't ask for anything big, just a story, but I was tired. I told him we'd read it tomorrow. We never did. There were too many tomorrows I counted on, and not enough right nows I embraced. If I could go back, I'd put down the phone more often. I'd say yes to the bedtime stories. I'd sit on the floor with them and build Lego castles, instead of worrying about the laundry piling up. Because those towers fall, but the memories down single quotes to childhood is not a marathon to be hurried through. It's a symphony to be savored. I rushed, thinking I was managing time well. But I wasn't. Managing love. And that's the part I'll always wish I did better. There's something about parenting that brings out every emotion you didn't know how to manage. Love, of course, but also fear, frustration, exhaustion. And if you're not careful, all of those feelings come spilling out as one thing, yelling. Used to tell myself that raising my voice was just part of discipline, that it was how kids learned respect. that a little fear would teach them boundaries. But now, with the benefit of hindsight and distance, I know the truth. Yelling taught them how to fear me, not how to respect themselves. I didn't yell because they were bad. I yelled because I was overwhelmed. Because I hadn't yet learned how to regulate my own emotions. Because I wanted control more than I wanted connection. There's one moment I can't forget. My daughter was trying to pour her own cereal. She spilled milk all over the counter. I lost it. I snapped, loud and sharp, like she'd done it on purpose. She didn't cry, not right away. She just stared at me with wide eyes, quietly trying to clean up the mess. That's the moment that haunts me. Not the mess, but the silence. Kids aren't always asking for answers. Most of the time, they just want to be heard. Underneath the tantrums and the talking back is usually a deeper message. I'm scared. I'm hurt. I'm trying to figure this out. But I wasn't listening. I was reacting. If I had a do-over, I wouldn't aim to be the loudest voice in the room. I'd be the calmest. I'd kneel down, meet them eye to eye, and ask what was really going on. Because what they needed wasn't volume, it was understanding. When you yell, you might win the moment. But when you listen, you win the relationship. And I'd choose the relationship every single time if I had the chance again. When you become a parent, you don't just raise a child, you also raise a vision. Maybe you imagine them playing the piano, excelling at sports, taking after your best qualities. You start painting this picture in your mind long before they even speak. I did. I imagined success, achievement, confidence. I wanted them to be prepared, capable, well-rounded. I signed them up for everything: music lessons, language classes, math tutoring, not because they asked, but because I thought they should want to. But somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing them for who they really were. I was so focused on shaping them, I forgot to meet them. My son, it turns out, didn't care about trophies. He loved to draw. He'd sit for hours doodling in notebooks, designing characters, lost in his own world. I remember walking in one day and telling him, "You need to spend more time on your math homework instead of wasting time on this." That word, wasting, I wish I could take it back, because now I see it wasn't wasted at all. It was him expressing himself. It was joy. It was potential, just not the kind I was looking for. My daughter didn't like big crowds. She hated dance recitals and school performances. But I kept signing her up, thinking I was building confidence. What I was really doing was ignoring her boundaries. We don't mean to do this, but we project. We take our dreams, our fears, our insecurities, and place them on their little shoulders. And we call it parenting. If I could go back, I'd ask more questions. I'd be more curious. I'd let them lead sometimes. I'd notice what lit them up and lean into that, not into my agenda. Because the greatest gift you can give your child isn't a plan, it's permission. Permission to be exactly who they are, messy, magnificent, and entirely their own. When you're the parent, it feels like you're supposed to have all the answers. You're the one in charge, the example, the rule setter. So when you mess up, and you will mess up, it's tempting to hide behind the role instead of owning the moment. I used to think saying sorry to my kids would weaken my authority, that it would confuse them, blur the lines. But now I know better. I know that refusing to apologize didn't make me strong, it made me distant, unreachable, human. Yes, but unwilling to be seen that way. There were times I lost my temper, blamed them unfairly, or dismissed something they clearly cared about. And instead of sitting down and saying, "I'm sorry, I was wrong," that wasn't okay. I'd move on like nothing happened. Maybe I brought them a snack later or asked if they wanted to go out for ice cream. My version of an unspoken peace offering. But children know. They always know. They may not have the words for it yet, but they feel it in their bones when something is unresolved. One time after an argument, my daughter looked at me and said quietly, "It doesn't feel fair." I knew exactly what she meant. And I wanted to fix it with logic, with justification. But what she needed, what I should have said, was just 3 simple words. You're right, sorry. Apologies don't diminish you as a parent, they expand you as a person. They teach your child that being wrong isn't shameful, it's human. They teach forgiveness not as a lecture, but as a lived experience. If I could go back, I'd apologize more. Not just when it was convenient, but when it was necessary. Because saying, I'm sorry, doesn't make you less of a parent. It makes you a better one. This one is hard to admit, because I never intended it. No parent sets out to make their child feel unloved. But somewhere along the way, without meaning to, I created a pattern. Approval when they behaved, distance when they didn't, good grades, hugs and praise, clean room, let's get ice cream. Got in trouble at school, silence, short answers, withdrawal. I didn't say, I love you less right now, but I didn't need to. The energy said it for me. I thought I was teaching consequences, that they'd understand actions have weight. But what I was really teaching was that love felt safest when they were easy to love. And that's a lesson no child should ever learn. Love, real love, is what shows up when they're crying, not just when they're performing. It's what holds them close when they've messed up, not when they've done everything right. But I was parenting with expectations, not empathy. And the result? My kids became afraid of disappointing me more than they felt safe being themselves around me. I remember once, my son came home with a report card that wasn't perfect. He was nervous, fidgeting, trying to explain before I even said a word. And I, tired from work, stressed, distracted, said, "You can do better than this." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't punish him. But I also didn't say, "I love you just the same." I should have. I should have led with love, not judgment. If I could do it over, I'd make it unmistakably clear. My love isn't a prize for good behavior, it's a foundation. Unmoving, undeniable. I'd remind them that nothing they do could ever add to or take away from how much I love them. And I'd say it not just when things were going well, but especially when they weren't, because that's when love matters most. We live in a world that moves fast and forgets how tender childhood is. I didn't always realize how sacred that innocence was, how rare, how fleeting. I was so focused on preparing my kids for the real world that sometimes, without knowing it, I brought that world too close, too soon. I let them hear things I shouldn't have argued in front of them. I exposed them to my grown-up stress, let the weight of finances or relationships spill into their peaceful spaces. I let them watch things on screens that were too loud, too violent, too mature, thinking, everyone's watching this now. I didn't always draw the line. I didn't always say no. And the thing is, kids are resilient, but they shouldn't have to be that resilient. Not at 6. Not at 10. I remember one night I came home frustrated. Bills overdue, work pressure piling up, and I vented out loud in the kitchen. I thought they weren't listening. But the next morning, my daughter asked, "Are we going to lose our house?" My stomach dropped. I had no idea she heard. And I had no idea how deep it landed. That's when I realized she wasn't supposed to carry that kind of worry. That wasn't hers to hold. Protecting innocence isn't about sheltering kids from life. It's about giving them the right pace to discover it. It's about guarding the magic a little longer. About letting them believe in wonder before they have to deal with worry. If I could go back, I'd fight harder for that space. I'd turn the news off more. I'd filter the noise. I'd be the buffer between the harshness of the world and the softness of their hearts. Because childhood is already short. And once it's gone, you can't get it back. Let them be little. Let them believe. Let them grow at their own pace. That's what I'd do differently now. I'd guard their innocence like it was the most precious thing in the world. Because it was. Old traumas, unmet. It took me years, decades, even to realize how much of what I did as a parent wasn't about them at all. It was about me, my fears, my past, my pain. My unhealed wounds disguised as good intentions. I brought into parenting all the unresolved pieces of my own childhood. The need to be respected, the fear of being ignored, the deep longing to feel enough. And without realizing it, I let those things shape how I responded to my kids. When they pushed boundaries, it triggered something much older than the moment. When they talked back, it touched an insecurity that had nothing to do with them. I didn't mean to do it. No parent does. But when you haven't made peace with your past, you end up projecting it onto your children. And instead of raising them from a place of clarity, you raise them from a place of reaction. I remember one afternoon, my son forgot to call me when he got to a friend's house. He was safe, just distracted. But when he walked through the door, I exploded. Not because he was late, but because I had spent the last hour spiraling into fear, convinced something terrible had happened. I grew up in a household where bad things did happen, where silence meant danger. I hadn't dealt with that. So I made him pay for a fear he never created. He stood there, confused and hurt, as I unloaded not just my anger, but my history. If I could go back, I'd face that history sooner. I'd go to therapy. I'd talk through my childhood before trying to guide someone else through theirs. Because your kids aren't your therapists, and they're not your second chance to relive your youth. They're their own people, and they deserve a parent who knows the difference. We all carry baggage, but it's our responsibility to unpack it, not our children's job to carry it. Insecurities unknowingly passed down. The way resentment, fear, or bitterness shaped the way they parented. What they do differently: heal themselves first so they could raise their children lighter. When you're in survival mode, juggling jobs, bills, school pickups, homework, it's easy to forget that childhood is made up of moments, not milestones. It's not the report cards or recitals they remember most. It's the pancakes on Sunday, the camping trip that got rained out, the bedtime story that turned into an hour of giggling under the covers. I thought big gestures mattered most. Vacations, holidays, planned out experiences. And while those were beautiful, what I didn't realize was that the ordinary days were quietly becoming the ones they'd treasure most. I was often too busy to stop and make traditions. I told myself we'd start them when life calms down. But life doesn't calm down, it just moves forward. And before you know it, the opportunity is gone, not with a bang, but with a slow fade. My daughter once asked if we could have Friday movie nights every week. I said yes. But it only lasted a month or two before other things got in the way. And now, years later, she remembers that, not the movies we watched, but the fact that it stopped. What I wish I had done was choose just a few simple traditions and hold to them like anchors. Maybe it's baking together every birthday, or a yearly walk in the fall leaves, or sitting on the porch to watch the sunset on Sundays. Nothing big, nothing expensive, but something sacred. Because the truth is, kids don't remember everything, but they do remember consistency. They remember the things they could count on, the rituals that made them feel like they belonged to something special. If I had another chance, I'd build those moments with intention. I'd take more pictures, but even more importantly, I'd be in the pictures instead of behind the camera. Distracted. Because one day, those memories become the stories they tell. And I wish I'd written more of those stories on purpose. I grew up in a time, and maybe you did too, where emotions were either ignored or punished. You were told to toughen up, stop crying, go to your room until you can calm down. And that's how I learned to deal with feelings, by burying them or numbing them, or pretending they didn't exist. So when I became a parent, I didn't know how to handle my children's emotions. Tantrums felt like disrespect. Tears felt like failure. I responded with logic when what they needed was comfort. I tried to solve their problems instead of sitting with their pain. Didn't understand that a child needs language for their feelings, that they need to hear, it's okay to feel angry. It's okay to be sad, let's talk about it. Instead, I tried to rush them through their discomfort, not out of cruelty, but because I was uncomfortable. There was a night, I still remember it vividly, when my son came to me after getting picked on at school. He tried to tell me, voice cracking, that he felt ashamed. And instead of just listening, I jumped straight into advice. You need to stand up for yourself. Don't let them get to you. I thought I was being helpful, but I missed it. He didn't want a strategy. He wanted to feel safe, heard, held. Now, I see how powerful emotional literacy is. When kids learn to name their emotions, they learn to regulate them. When they see you handle sadness with gentleness, or anger with boundaries, instead of outbursts, they learn how to do the same. If I could go back, I'd talk about emotions at the dinner table. I'd say things like, today I felt overwhelmed, and let them see that adults feel too, and that it's okay. I'd give them tools, not just rules, because we teach math and reading and table manners, but often forget the most important subject of all, how to live well inside your own heart. For most of their childhood, I believed it was my job to be the strong one, the steady one, the one who held everything together. I thought that if I ever showed too much weakness, they'd feel unsafe, like the foundation beneath them could crack. So I held in tears. I powered through sickness. I smiled when I was exhausted. I gave and gave, convincing myself that love meant self-sacrifice. And in doing so, I built a wall made of good intentions, but it was still a wall. I didn't let them see me struggle. I didn't let them know when I was scared or sad or doubting myself. I thought I was protecting them. But what I didn't realize until much later was this: they didn't need a perfect parent. They needed a real one. They needed to see that adults feel too, that we get overwhelmed, that we fall apart sometimes, and that we don't disappear when we do. We just regroup, rebuild, and keep going. They needed to know that needing them wasn't a weakness. It was a way to show love could go both ways. I remember the first time I broke down in front of my daughter. I hadn't planned it. I was grieving a loss in the family, and the sadness caught me off guard. I sat on the kitchen floor, tears spilling before I could catch them. And instead of looking frightened, she sat down beside me, held my hand and said, "It's okay, I've got you." That moment, that quiet, shared humanity was one of the most healing of my life. If I could go back, I'd let more of those moments happen. I'd let them know they didn't just belong in my world, they mattered to it. I'd ask for their thoughts. I'd let them cheer me up. I'd tell them when their hug was the best part of my day. Because being strong doesn't mean being silent. And needing your child doesn't diminish your role, it deepens your bond. Our children want to be loved, yes, but they also want to matter. And I wish I had shown them, more often, how much they truly did. These 10 regrets aren't things I dwell on every day, but they live in me like faint echoes in an old house. They come back in the quiet moments, in photos that take my breath away, in the sound of a song that once played on the radio during late-night drives home from practice. They live in the corners of my heart I didn't know could hold so much tenderness, or so much ache. I share them, not because I want to rewrite my past. I can't, none of us can. But if you're listening, and you're still in the middle of it, still wiping sticky hands, still arguing over bedtimes, still stepping over toys, and wondering if you're doing any of it right, I hope something here gives you pause. Not guilt. Just pause, because there's time. There's always time for softness, for apologies, for sitting on the floor and letting them talk, even when you're tired, for choosing presence over perfection, for letting go of what the world says parenting should look like and leaning into what your child actually needs. They don't need you to be the best parent in the world. They just need you to see them, hear them, and love them without condition. And maybe, every now and then, to let them see that you need them too. If I could leave you with anything, it's this: regret is not a life sentence, it's a teacher. And if we're willing to listen, really listen, it can shape something beautiful from what was once broken. You still have today. That's more than enough. Start small. Show up, speak gently, love loudly. And write a story that ends not in regret, but in redemption.